Hello and welcome to The Bookyard, the show where we explore the world of self-publishing and the art of writing. Your host, Adiola Shonola, is excited to share her journey as a self-published author with you. As an author who chose to take the road less traveled, Adiola has experienced the highs and lows of self-publishing, and she's here to share her experiences with you. Each week, we'll explore the different aspects of self-publishing, from writing tips and tricks to marketing and promotion strategies. We'll also be interviewing other successful self-published authors who've made a name for themselves in the industry. We'll learn from their experiences and discuss the challenges they faced while making their dreams a reality. If you are an aspiring author who is thinking of self-publishing, or if you're already on this journey and looking for inspiration and guidance, this is the podcast for you. Adiola is here to share her experience and knowledge with you and to help you achieve your goals as a self-published author. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Bookyard podcast. This is a very first episode of this podcast. I hope you're able to join me on a weekly basis. So my name is Adiola Sanola again. I'm the host. And on this podcast, we're going to be exploring the world of writing and publishing. So everyone is welcomed if you are in that industry where you have a book in you and you want to self-publish and you don't know what to do. Today on this podcast, I'm going to be talking about how I wrote and published my first book. So writing of the book was quite, I think, is the easiest aspect for me when it comes to writing and publishing your book. So writing the books, I've always been writing. I think since secondary school, where I wrote quite a lot of poetry, and in 2003, I wrote my first novel. And you would come to my house and my bedroom, and there'll be journals, a lot of book and books, book idea, and a lot of writings. So eventually I got the nudge to sort of try and publish my poetry book. It was a tester, and it was simpler actually to publish the poetry book instead of the novel, because the novel was going to be more difficult. So the first thing I did actually was to go online and do a big research on who I could approach to help in publishing my book that I'd written. And it was quite interesting because after, doing quite a lot of research, I found a company called Auto House. And when I emailed them, I was very lucky because I think the week after they were having a seminar or a conference for people who wanted to self-publish their books. And we went for they sent me details about the conference. I remember that day actually driving down for the conference. I was very unwell. I had the flu, but I just thought to myself, I was going to get there anyway and I wasn't going to miss it. So I drove down, and we were quite a few people there. We were like aspiring authors who had written books, and we weren't sure how to publish it. Some of them would have approached, what do you call it, traditional publishers with no success. Personally, I did, because when I wrote my books, I approached literary agents. I got a lot of rejection letters. Hey, I'm still standing, which was fine. And then I said to myself, I'll give myself another year to see if I could get a traditional publisher to take my books off my hand, because I knew that because I was busy as a solicitor, self publication was going to take a lot of my time. And I really didn't think I had what it took to go down that path. So after going for that seminar that day, I just sat there with other people, very unwell, and listened to everything they had to say. And it was quite nice to see other people there as well, like me, because I thought, okay, you're not in this alone, so it's fine. So they gave us all the information we required, told us what we needed to do, and then emailed them when we were ready, and they would just do all the other work. So that was it. So after this seminar, I drove back home
Still very unwell, but thinking, thank God I went for that seminar because now I have information on what it takes to actually self publish my book. Because the literary agents, all of the ones I sort of approached, have said no to me. So that's fine. So I'll pause there and just take a step back to how I wrote my book. So writing my book for me is very easy because what I tend to do is always have a notepad in my bag, no matter how a small one that'll fit in. I have notepad in my car as well. I have notepads quite a lot beside my bedside table, and I have notepads all around me. And the reason for that is that ideas just flash in my mind, it flashes in my brain. And sometimes it's almost like it just goes like that, and I have to catch it. And I've in the past, I would tell myself, oh, that comes to my head. I'm like, I'm gonna remember. Don't worry. I'll repeat it several times in my brain to say, oh, don't worry. You're gonna remember, because I'm too lazy or too busy to write it down. And what would happen is that when I'm ready to write it down, it's gone. I just never ever remember. So writing is, you have to know where you get your inspiration from. Mine most of the time are sporadic splashes in my brain, and sometimes I'm watching a film and I'm like, okay, I like that. I could use maybe a phrase or a word somebody says. I get inspiration from there. I get inspiration from reading. I read a lot. I read a lot of books. If I don't read, I almost feel as if, there's something wrong with me. So I read a lot of books. I get ideas from there. But I think most of my ideas come naturally. They just drop into my mind, onto my brain. And when it drops, I write what I am given. So I've done a few interviews in the past where people ask me, are you a poet or an author? And I'm like, it's difficult for me to answer that question because I write what I get in my brain. So if I don't get it, I don't write it. If I get it in my brain, I write it. So I'm just a writer, sort of channeling everything I'm sort of inspired to write through my different books and different genres. So that's how it is. So you then need to sit down. Obviously, after getting that, you then have to sit down, sort of map it out, write it out, and write it out in a legible form. Make sure that your writing is proofread, because one of the things I hate the most is I read a book and I see grammatical errors. And that's why I say writing of your book is sort of the easiest. Proofreading is the most difficult because all of my books, the proofreading process takes about a year. I think because I'm a solicitor, I'm really worried that I write a book, I publish it, I'm not able to tell people about it because of all the mistakes in it. And I'll let you into a little secret. Even all the ones I've published, I don't open them usually because I'm so worried I'll spot something there and it will really annoy me. But usually I use about four proofreaders. I just use different people because I know they pick up different things. And then when they do that, I then give it to someone who will proofread, copy edit, and then send the final draft to me. And when I'm satisfied, that's when it really goes out. And usually I tell myself, this is it, because I keep changing things and correcting things. So that process is really difficult. And that's why I say the writing of your book is the easiest in the process. The things that follow it are the most difficult. If you're lucky to get a traditional publisher, take your books off your hand, then you're a very lucky person. If not, then you have to do all of the hard work of self publication. So I go back to my story about going to that conference. So when I got home after the conference, and what they had told us to do was to make sure that we sent to them the final manuscript of our book. And since I told myself that the easiest thing I could do was test this self publication with my poetry book, I thought that was going to be the easiest way, because poetry is what it is, is what you make of it, what I make of it. So I knew I didn't have to make too many corrections in the book, even though I still sent it out to be proofread. So when I was satisfied with the manuscript, I just sent it off to Author House by email. I paid because the problem with self publication is that you put so much money into it. That's what I've been doing for so many years. It's really painful because I want my money back, but I've not been able to get it. But it's okay, I'll keep going. Because I've been told that when you write, the joy of your writing is for other people to be able to read it and sort of appreciate your writing. So I emailed Author House with my manuscript, and then they came back and did all of the work. They sent me back an email saying that it was like a table, and the table had corrections. So they put lines in it, and they said, this is what the final manuscript is going to be like before we print it. Go through all the changes that you find. Put the change number, the book number, no, the book page, the paragraph and the line, and we will make the changes. So as I was doing that on one side, then they put me in touch with their graphic team. And the graphic team, the idea was for me to work with them to agree the cover page of my book, which was quite an interesting process because I had to think of a title as well. And I thought, oh my God, I was writing all of these books. I didn't know I needed a title. So I struggled with that. But I eventually settled with something I really liked, which was Stage One, a collection of poetry by Adiola Sonola. So that was really nice. I settled for that. And I worked with the graphics team to sort of agree the cover for my book. And it was difficult, but then at the end of the day, I said to the guy, you know what? A while ago, somebody drew a caricature of me in London, when I was in Leicester Square. It was a night out with friends. I said I was going to use that. So they said, okay, that's fine. Scan the caricature to us and we will send it to our graphics team, will work with it and then put that as a cover page. But that created a problem because they came back saying, oh, you can't use a caricature. I needed to provide um, the consent of the artist for them to be able to use it. I'm like, you can't get that because it was random. It was a random day. I was out with friends and there was an illustrator sitting on the road, an artist. I sat down, paid him, and he drew me. This is my picture. I'm not gonna, and this was years ago. So we went back and forth on that because we were saying that, oh, our lawyers are advising us that you can't use it. We don't want to be sued. You need the consent or authority of the illustrator to use that. Anyway, we went back and forth, and I said to them, look, I'm a solicitor as well, I'm a lawyer. My area of expertise is commercial law. Nobody's going to sue you for this because I paid for my illustration to be drawn. And this was years ago. This belongs to me. I paid for it. So when the guy drew it and I paid for it, he actually passed to me. They were like, oh, anyway, we're going to go back to our lawyers. So their lawyers in America, it took a long time. Eventually, they came back to say they were satisfied with me using my caricature and they were going to use that. So that process was then done. They went and drew my caricature. I had very short hair then. I wasn't wearing a wig. So they went and did that and then came back and asked me to approve it. So after tweaking it bits and bobs, I eventually approved it. I was so excited. I was like, okay, this is going to be done eventually. And yeah, they went and they got it sorted, and I approved the manuscript as well because I had to be approved. And yeah, that was it. And they sent me an email saying, "Oh, your book will be published on a particular date. It will be available on Amazon." And I was very excited. And then one day the post came in, and it was my book. I almost cried. First book. I was so excited. I was like, "Yeah, I got there eventually." So it was a learning process for me. Very easy as well because it's very different from my novels. I'll tell you about my novels during one of the episodes because this is episode one. So publishing my poetry book was the easiest ever because, like I said, poetry is very easy. I gave it to an agent, Author House. There are so many other agents out there, that you can search online that would help you with your self-publication. Because even though I used Author House for my first book, I didn't use them for my second publication. And because I thought, why am I paying you so much money? I would do it my own way. But then doing it your own way meant that you had to do quite a lot of work. And what I soon realized is that when you use a third party agent, all they're interested in is to publish your book. They're never, ever going to market it for you. Anything extra they do, they collect money from you. So you're a cash cow for these companies. And then the question is, if you self publish, how do you make your money back? Big question mark. We'll deal with that in one of the other episodes. But just know that when you self-publish, maybe apart from family, friends, or dream bits and bobs on your behalf from Amazon, and you get your £1 royalty in the post, because I have a few checks. If one of the checks that came in was for 25 cents, can you imagine that as royalty? So self-publication is difficult. I think it's better if it's traditionally published by traditional publisher. But the thing is, if you have it in you to write books or anything else, journals, the joy is really sharing it with other people. So you do need to get it out some way, but it's time consuming. It takes money from you, and there's no guarantee for return on investment, because, like I said to you, all the people you work with, they do what they need to do, but unfortunately, it's your dream to pursue and see how you can make money from that publication. But the joy is every day I'm sort of down or stressed out, I just bring all of my books in front of me and I smile. It gives me joy to see those books are out there. And a few people have sort of bought bits and bobs from Amazon. And, I have comments, and it gives me joy, just to share what is in my brain with the rest of the world. So thank you for tuning in. This is the end of episode 1. Join me next week for episode 2, where I'll be sharing these strategies that made publishing my first book a success. Thank you. This is Adela Sonola, your host. I'm out. Bye.
Thanks for joining Adiola on this journey. She looks forward to exploring the world of self-publishing with you. Make sure to subscribe to The Bookyard and join in every week for a new episode. Until next time, keep writing and keep dreaming big.